All right. I'm Brice Hancock. Welcome to Mile High Recovery Chat. I'm here with Matt Serel of You Are Accountable. He's in New York City. You can see the city behind him, which is really cool. I'm just here in Denver. And so Matt owns a company. You'll get into it in a second, called You Are Accountable, and it's an app, correct, to help people in recovery.
Kind of. I'd say we leverage technology, but not necessarily an app.
It's not an app. All right. So let's just start. Like a lot of times we want to, I don't know, we qualify ourselves as I'm an addict or I'm in recovery. And so you're from Long Island.
I am. Syosset.
Okay. And what happened? Something happened.
Yeah. A lot of things happened.
All right.
So I'll just kind of say that, high level, I've always been interested in technology, and also always been interested in partying. And kind of the way I looked at things was like, work hard, party hard. And that's really like how I lived most of my life. And I also, like, funny enough, prided myself on not having an addictive personality, like all throughout college. And for me, it really, turned into like, I'd put anything in front of my face whenever it was in front of my face. Except for painkillers, at least for a time. I did that once and said, whoa, this is the most amazing thing ever. Never doing that again. Had a friend in college who was selling them that was kind enough to say, hey, I'm never selling these to you again. And that like kept me okay for a while, actually.
So in high school, you did everything except opioids.
So in high school, I really just smoked and drank. Once I got to college, that's when everything kind of picked up. Okay. But it was I surrounded myself with people that were doing that. So it seemed kind of normal as long as like my grades were okay. And I was, running my company outside and that was doing okay. But like always really high achiever, graduated college, was in law school at night, started an electronic health record technology company while I was in law school at night. Wow. And, ended up getting ankle surgery that I don't think I really needed. I think I just really wanted painkillers in hindsight. Had one surgery, didn't go well. Had a doctor that was friendly enough to mail me prescriptions whenever I ran out, and then had a second surgery. And by that point, I was, just completely hooked. And I would say, so that was January 2013. And in that 8 months, I just like completely went downhill. Like the image I give to people is my life devolved into like me getting home from work, eating these ice pops because it was the only thing I could stomach, smoking my bong, and then like nodding out while eating the ice pop and waking up with it melted all over me. Like that's what my life became, which is hilarious in hindsight. But yeah. That's really like my roommate would look at me and be like, what's wrong with you, dude?
What were you taking? What were you taking?
So I was prescribed Roxys for a while. So 30 milligram oxycodone. And then the doctor said, I don't need those anymore. And I live in New York. So I had a guy who delivered them to me. Yeah. It got pretty gnarly. My habit towards the end was like $300 a day, which I wasn't going to be able to maintain for a long time. And
like about how many milligrams? How many milligrams a day were you like taking at 300? Is that like
300? 60?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was taking 10 pills a day of 300 milligrams, and it got to the point where I would like literally have to set my alarm for a half an hour before I got up for the day because I'd wake up with withdrawals. So I'd set my alarm, wake up, take a pill, go back to sleep, and then wake up straight 30 minutes later. And then, just to kind of fast forward through this a bit, basically my girlfriend, who's now my wife, kind of caught me texting my dealer on the way back from a trip with some friends that we left early because I was withdrawing. And she was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I recreationally do painkillers sometimes. And she looked at me like I was crazy. Stayed at home with me for a week while I went cold turkey. We threw my bong down the garbage chute in the building, which was cathartic, but probably not something I'd recommend. And we went to the psychiatrist who said, like, not only do I need to stop taking pills? But I should also stop, drinking and smoking weed too. At which point we both looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, I'm 25. Like, this is what my friends do. I do this for work. Like, how could I not drink? Like, maybe I'll stop smoking weed. And, fast forward from that 3 months, I was on a work trip and woke up the next morning in the hospital, not knowing where I was. And in hindsight, what happened was I didn't answer Becky's calls in the morning. She got nervous, called one of my employees to find out where I was staying, called the hotel, and the hotel couldn't wake me up. So they called EMS, and I had aspirated in my sleep. So threw up and inhaled it, and would have been dead within 15 minutes if EMS didn't get there when they did. So really lucky to be alive. And as far as I know, not brain damage, but you all let me know what you think after this.
No, I'm sure you're fine. You seem like a fairly high achiever to me. And I, like what, I don't know, a lot of people don't understand is like with pain pills, I don't care who you are. Like there's some people, in my opinion, that are going to be an addict no matter what happens in their life. And then there's some people who will never touch drugs. And then there's most people that are in the middle, right? But if I don't care who you are, if you take pain pills for a couple weeks, you're addicted. You stop taking them and you feel like your body says, I need more, right? And there's this like belief that if you're not on heroin, it's not that bad. And that's not true, because I believe it's even worse with pills, because you get the same amount and your tolerance just goes like this, right? Your tolerance just goes up and up and
Yep.
up. And like, here's the lethal level. Your tolerance just kind of goes right up towards the lethal level eventually, and then you die, right? And I was addicted to OxyContins for a while, and it was the same thing. And I was just like, it sucks because you're like a slave to them. You're like, instead of thinking about the weekend coming up, you're thinking about how many pills do I have? How much money do I have? How am I going to get the dealer to get it? And oh shit, what if the dealer doesn't have any, right? And so because it's like this all time consuming thing. And so I get it. And 8 months, and that also doesn't sound like a long time, but 8 months addicted to Roxy's is a long time.
Yeah. And I would say I was addicted before that. That's just when like my life started, really getting out of control.
Okay.
I was on a one-way street to dying. Like there was no alternative for me with the direction I was going.
Right.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more kind of with what we're doing, but actually one of the most dangerous things with opiates is the fact that like when you're trying to get sober, because when you're taking it consistently, and as long as you're not getting something mixed with fentanyl, you're actually pretty safe because you know how much you can handle. Like from what happened with me is I was stopping and starting. So I would go right back to my old dose, but my tolerance was gone. And that's how I know a lot of people that have died that way after being clean for a stint, going back and like overdosing on their first shot.
The same amount they used to take, and it's too much for their body.
And I know for me, like I remember going to sleep that night. I didn't feel like I overdosed. That's like the tricky thing with it.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. But, for me, that was, at that point I was, basically told like I had to go to treatment, and I really didn't want to go. Went to an inpatient place that was 12-step. And I didn't know what 12 steps were. And I also like wasn't brought up with like a lot of religion. I was brought up Jewish. My dad was brought up Orthodox Jewish and rebelled and became a DJ when he was 17. My mom had blue and white Christmas stockings. So like that's kind of like what I was brought up with. So
okay.
When I got to this treatment center and they start talking about the 12 steps and God, if I didn't have like 102 fever and pneumonia, like personally, I would have ran out the door. So I'm glad that I was sick enough and desperate enough to stay. And from there, I didn't really plan on staying sober. Went to outpatient treatment because they recommended it. I figured I'd do it for a year and drink normally like my wife. Which the way my wife drinks is she has half a mimosa, puts a paper towel on it, and puts it in the fridge. Which like I have no desire to ever drink like that.
Yeah, she's a normie. We call it a normie, right?
Yep, like as normal as it gets, which seems crazy to me. I don't even drink water like that.
Right.
And yeah. And really, what I had found is after kind of going through treatment and stepping down is that after I left treatment, after that, like 60, 90 days, I was kind of left on my own. Like they said, like, you should go to meetings, and I did that. But it takes a while to build up that network. I ran up on things like Becky wanting to drug test me, which like isn't great for a relationship. And I was so lonely. I couldn't hang out with my friends. I was 25. I was going to meetings. I didn't know anyone. And it like would have been really easy for me to like go back to the way I was. So
and what you're describing, I think, is that, like, I remember being in treatment and this guy said, well, I went to inpatient and then was sober for 30 days and then I felt worse. Because real addicts, real alcoholics feel worse sober. Like the problem isn't addiction, the problem is sobriety in a way, right? It's like we're not comfortable in our own skin or whatever. And I think that's a really good indication that like you're an alcoholic too, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So not just pills, it's like everything. And I'm the same way. But for me, that took a while to wrap my head around, like, oh, I can't do anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I tried. I tried really hard to just stop taking pills. And every time I ended up back at pills until I overdosed. So it just, yeah, I have no option.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So how did you know? I really want to get into your company though. Because you managed to, like, turn, what do they say? You turn your wound into, like, it's your career, right? Like that was your purpose, and you kind of found like a way to turn all this into a way to help people, and you used your special skills and your special talents, and you had already run a successful tech company. Was that right?
Yeah. So while I was bottoming out, I was building a company called AcuPoint. That's an electronic health record platform for providers that work with children with autism mostly. And when I got sober, it did a lot better. And I sold that company at the end of 2017 and to a company called Therapy Brands, and worked there for the last 2 years. And, I really knew after selling that company that I wanted to do something in this space based on my experience. I do a ton of service, through 12-step, and also speak at treatment centers I went to. And it's something that I get a lot of joy out of, and frankly, keeps me sober. And my life's better when I'm sober. So, after selling the company, I had the opportunity, and I reached out to a friend who is a clinician that's also sober that I know from recovery, and said, hey, I have this idea of basically, how can, basically helping people after treatment step down to something that's less intense, but also isn't so obtrusive in their life. So like for me, I went from inpatient treatment, which is all day, every day, to outpatient treatment, which is 12 hours of therapy a week. And then like from there, I stepped down to some therapy, but like it was a pretty big jarring step down. So what our platform does is
that's a friend of mine. I think you said outpatient treatment.
Yeah, outpatient treatment. Sorry, Kelly. And what the platform does is basically somebody creates an account, and normally they do it while they're in treatment. They fill out an intake form, and that tells us about their recovery and, kind of what their goals are, where they're at. And then we basically create a relapse prevention plan for them. So what they're going to do to maintain their sobriety. So it might be 90 meetings in 90 days, or exercise or meditation, whatever works for them. And then we follow up with them over text message on those goals, 3 or 4 times a week, including some data collection, which I'll talk about. And then lastly, we have random toxicology screening that we do using saliva-based drug tests, which is something that I used for 1.5 years that not only kept me straight, but also helped my family feel comfortable, and my clinicians. And then through our portal, all of this is accessible to everybody that is involved in their kind of support system. So we really believe that, transparency breeds accountability, breeds recovery. So that's what we're about.
And so this is something that I talk about a lot is like the doctors and the pilots, program where they're held accountable with the testing and the therapy and the group therapy for a period of 5 years. And they have, I think it's a 94% success rate of people still sober, completely sober after 5 years, which is pretty amazing. And a lot of people said, well, those are pilots, those are doctors, they're smart, they want to keep their job. And I agree. However, I also don't believe anybody wants to show up in the world addicted to pain pills and passing out and choking on their own vomit and all this stuff. So I believe this, and a lot of other people believe it too, and you probably too. If you can keep people accountable, you can keep people sober. And you don't need to be right in their face. You can do it with an app. I have a friend who ran a company, and they had a really good success rate just calling people on the phone and combining it with the UAs, with the tests.
Yep.
Yeah. And so did you kind of base it on that pilot program?
I knew the pilot program existed, and it kind of came up as AJ and I were discussing this, but it was really based on my own experience. So, what I had done after I stepped down from treatment is I was seeing this psychiatrist in New York who I still see and love, but super expensive because I'm in New York. And I was just like, hey, man, it's kind of a pain to get to you every week to get tested. And also B, I don't want to pay you $600 a week to get tested. I can't do that after having a $300 a day habit. Can you just write me 10 prescriptions for drug tests? I'll carry them with me wherever I go. And I'll go to whatever lab is near me when you text me. And I did that for a year and a half. And the agreement was if I relapsed, I was going back to inpatient treatment, which I always say thing I never want to do again.
And who was so you got tested, he told you when to take it. It was hopefully random, I'm guessing. And the agreement was probably, I'm going to tell your wife.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. And so my friend was Andrew Wainwright, and he had a company called AIR. It was Assistance in Recovery. And it was the family would hire them to keep you or me accountable because we're getting out of rehab for the fourth, fifth time. The family's burned out on us, and they shut us down. Like his company shuts the addict or the alcoholic or the person, whatever you want to refer to them. They shut them down. They're not anywhere where they say they're not going to be. And if they are, they're kicked out of the house. Right. And so they had like a 70-something% success rate a year post inpatient treatment of people still being in recovery, which is also really good, 70% in a year. And they did it over the phone, and they coached the family. And so that's interesting that because you just agreed to that. Like, yeah, tell her because I don't really want to use again, right?
Yeah, no, this was all of my volition. And I looked for other options, and there wasn't anything out there that was affordable. Like a recovery treatment can be really expensive.
Oh my God.
So like weekly testing through us plus the accountability is only $250 a month.
Right.
And if we have a step down plan that's monthly testing with the same outreach, and that's $99 a month. So, compared to the price of treatment and other programs, it's about as affordable as it can get. So that's one of our missions.
Okay, so you guys provide the testing through your accountable?
Yep. So they're like point of care instant saliva tests.
Okay, and I don't know if you know this, but we use tests that are DNA tests. So when the person comes in, they do a DNA swab, so you can't give it to your friend to pee in a cup.
Yeah.
We have your DNA, and we know if you peed in the cup. So anyway, so they agree to what, like a meeting a week, or if they agree to meditation, they agree to meditate or whatever it is, and they get tested. But it's somebody that they have some desire to be clean, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I would say generally it's people that want to be clean. It's not, for someone who's really fighting this because it won't work. This isn't treatment. This is to keep somebody, that wants to be held accountable. And, to the DNA testing thing, we do use saliva tests so we could see them do it so they can adulter it. But we also use that as a time for peer support. So anybody who works for us is in recovery. in long-term recovery. So we take it from that perspective of offering that support. And I saw someone had, asked about like it feeling like probation. And, I would say that I wanted to be watched, frankly, is how I felt. And I knew I needed that. But we also, a lot of times probation can feel like somebody's out to catch you. We're people in recovery. We're not telling you to do anything we haven't done ourselves. We're coming from a place of wanting to help. We're not trying to catch you. And like, if you slip, like, then it's like our job to like help catch you quickly so you don't hurt yourselves or somebody else. And that it's a slip and not a full run. So that's really, our goal. And, hopefully prevent you from relapsing by helping you instill the skills for long-term recovery. Because that's what it is. It's a muscle.
Right. And so like Kelly was just, mentioning that, what if they don't want to be, people don't want to be monitored all the time. Right. And like for my treatment center, a lot of people, they don't want to be there. Their parents want them to be there or they've had an overdose. And it's kind of like they kind of want to be there, but they kind of don't want to be there, or they kind of want to like smoke pot and have a beer once in a while. And they're still going through that, deal. But the way I see your program, if somebody's not totally on board, like after a year-long program like mine or 6 months, it could be a way to like regain the trust of your family back on your own, right? It's like I've done 6 months of treatment and I've done 3 months of sober living and I kind of want to be on my own and I know no one trusts me. So this could be like an addition to like, it's extended care, right?
It's exactly what it is. And generally, we won't work with someone who doesn't have some sort of clinical care. We're there to be an adjunct. And actually, part of the thing is the clinician that you're working with needs to be invited to our portal so they can have non-splittable information on how you're interacting with us and for the family as well. So it's really twofold: get everybody on the same page, help you rebuild trust, and keep you on the right track as well.
Yeah, it's great. And with that clinical care, like everybody's getting better. Hopefully the family's getting better. And like, you can speak to this and it's difficult, but you reach a point where you don't want to use anymore, but it takes a while to get there. Right. And it takes a while to build that trust back with your, your loved ones or even the courts or whatever it is. Because they've heard it all before.
And I've said it all before, frankly. So like, why is this time different?
Yeah, but it's also like, like I tell people, like, if you're doing a good job, I'll advocate for you. I will tell your probation, you're killing it. I'll tell your wife to, back off. But you got to be doing the deal.
Yep.
You got to be doing the deal. But I believe that like you'd mentioned before, your wife testing you is not good. She's supposed to be your wife, not a detective, right? Not a probation officer. So it's like unhealthy for your relationship at that point.
Totally. But I also I could never blame her for wanting to do that after what I put her through.
Oh yeah. We almost died, dude.
Yeah. So like, it was also like part of my journey to like, hey, how do I take this off of you so we can work on our relationship that's obviously not in the best place right now. So we see this program as one way of doing that, allowing the family to focus on the family and not worry about like, is Matt doing the right thing?
Right.
It's just another way to remove that kind of dynamic.
All right. So how long have you been working on this? Like, when did you launch this?
So it's really new. We launched it on October 14th of 2020, which is my 7-year anniversary of being sober.
Excellent.
And really, had our first members in November and actually built a tech platform after that in January, and have just been building up from there.
And so another really cool thing about this, and I'm sure that you understand this, is that if you get enough people in this, you're going to have real data, right? Yep. You're going to have publishable data, and a lot of places either don't have it or don't want to admit to their statistics, right? But you're going to be able to have like large populations, and you're going to be able to like post real data on what happens when somebody follows your program or any program like this. Similar to drug court.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my last company was Applied Behavior Analysis, which is all about collecting data for behavior change. And one of our advisors is a well-known behavior analyst. So what we do is we actually send out surveys twice a week. One is a brief substance craving survey, a GAD-7 and a PHQ-9 all in one. So measuring cravings, anxiety, and depression. And the second survey we send out is, hey, did you complete your goals or not? We're actually collecting data for the individual, but also on a macro scale of what interventions are working best for people, what's helping actually reduce anxiety versus not. And so we use that for the individual to show them that recovery actions making them feel better, but also on our level to make our program more effective. So data collection is something I'm super interested in, and I think we can, do a lot of good with that.
It's killer, man, because like you'll be able to see like what's going on when people have the most relapses. And then when you see those things happening, you can do an intervention, hopefully, and get them past the relapse, right? And so you can like head people off at the pass before they relapse, get them the support they need. Because I don't care who you are. In my recovery, there was a couple key times when I was definitely going to relapse. And for some reason I didn't. Somebody helped me, I reached out or whatever. But if I would have relapsed, I wouldn't be here right now. And so if you can get people through those stressful like moments, you can really change lives.
Totally. And we both know that like a relapse happens way before you actually take that first drink. And like you said, it could literally be something as simple as somebody calling you at the right time that saves your life.
For sure. And also people have like, a lot of times we take the drugs away and there's an underlying mental health thing, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys will be able to address those kinds of things as well.
Yeah. And that's part of being able to invite your clinicians to the portal. So like one of the things we do on our graphs is you can actually add in like a phase change line for when something happens. So for example, you might mark when you started taking an SSRI or an antidepressant. And the reason you would do that, or I would do that, is as somebody who's been on and off antidepressants in my life, they take forever to know if they're working or not. So you could actually see with how you're responding to the surveys if it's helping or not. But also if you come off the meds, like if your anxiety, depression, whatever, starting to tick up. So it's a really good clinical tool to look at like your behavior over time. The other thing I think is really cool about our program is, as somebody who spent a lot of time in therapy, like I know that the clinician I was with knew what goals I was working on, but I didn't necessarily know what they thought I was working on. Yeah. So like having that transparency of like, hey, dude, here's your goals. This is what you're doing, and this is why you're doing it, and be able to work more collaboratively with your team.
That's helpful. Yeah, man, it's really cool. So you're charging, what did you say, $600 a month?
No. So $250 a month for
$250 a month
for weekly testing.
Okay.
And the outreach is the same. So 3 times a week kind of check-ins. And then $99 a month for random monthly testing.
All right. And there's no way insurance pays for any of this, I'm assuming?
Not yet, but I'm hoping with the data we're collecting that, that'll be next. I mean,
cool.
Anecdotally, it's a no-brainer for insurance. How much money does saving a relapse save you? So
you'd think, right? Something tells me that the insurance companies make out no matter what happens, but somebody somewhere has got to want to do the right thing, because this is gonna save a lot of people's lives, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I love it, man. I hope that you're super successful. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, just I really appreciate you having me on. We didn't get to talk about this, but the way we met is I literally cold LinkedIn messaged you, and you responded. So I really appreciate that.
Dude, I get dozens of LinkedIn messages, and usually they're all super spammy, and yours wasn't. And it's a great name. You Are Accountable is a great name, because it actually made me think, maybe this isn't spam. Maybe it's not spam, right? And it's cool. And you're right, that's super rare. I even respond to those LinkedIn messages, but I'm glad that I did.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to staying in touch.
All right. Talk to you later, Matt.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.